Okay, I'm going to go ahead and get started here. So, welcome to the webinar for NX, PMI, and MBD model-based definition for purchasers and manufacturing. This is NX10 based, and I'm going to be running this out of Team Center. So, again, if you attended my Tuesday webinar, cover a couple of things just to make sure that everybody's on the same page. So, what is PMI and MBD? PMI is NX's expression of model-based definition. It's to document your model in 3D space. You can, when your model is documented in 3D space, you can eliminate the need for having a paper drawing. You can eliminate the need for a paper drawing. It doesn't necessarily mean you have to. But it is a quick and easy way to convey your design intent, and you can end up with fewer mistakes by using 3D model-based definition. Another review of terms. Paperless is an initiative to electronically deliver information, but that information could be a step in a PDF or the CAD file and a drawing file. To go drawingless means that there's no two-dimensional drawing at all. Everything is annotated in 3D models. And if you're going into PMI again, model-based definition, you do not have to commit to going to drawingless. Most companies are going to have legacy data that is a mix of drawings and 3D model-based definition in PMI. So you're always going to have those drawings are going to be a part of our lives for a long time. If you're using NXPMI, it's not just to make the design engineer's life a little bit easier. You can consume that information in downstream processes. You can consume it in assembly process planning, CMM inspection. The programming time is much reduced with that, CNC programming as well. And you can also, if you place 3D PMI on your part, you can then pull it into your drawing if you need to create a 2D drawing. Who's using it? Orbital ATK and General Motors are two big recent users of 3D model-based definition. They've gotten their supply chain up to speed, and which is likely the biggest challenge you're going to run into is getting your supply chain to accept a new type of data set. Traditionally, we share a step in a PDF, or if you're running in SOLIDWORKS, you share on the SOLIDWORKS part file and drawing file, things like that. The idea is that you want to have just a single part file, a single data set that you can send to a client. And if you're looking at doing this and you want to figure out where you are in your company as compared to others out there in the world, National Institute for Standards and Testing, the NIST website, has developed model-based engineering or model-based-enterprise.org. And it has a set of assessment tools on there that will allow you to kind of evaluate where you are with respect to model-based definition and what's called a technical data package, and that's the package that you would send to a vendor with how to make this part that you want them to make. There's 7 levels from 0. I don't think anybody really is on 0 anymore if they're running CAD. All the way through level 6, where most things are automated. Everybody in the entire enterprise and the extended enterprise, their supply chain, are all using the 3D model information. Most companies I interact with are in level 2 to 3, aspiring to level 4 and 5. So it's a good tool to figure out where you are with respect to everyone out there in the world. So if you have an assembly, you're putting together an assembly that's hot. We need to get this part shipped by Friday. The production team knows about it, but engineering is still trying to put it together. They're consuming the requirements as fast as they can. They're making the parts as fast as they can. They're putting them into the assembly, but no one's had time to put an assembly drawing together yet. So how does your production team and purchasing team know how to get this information? That's what I want to cover in this webinar here. So here I have a shot of just an assembly drawing, but it's not exploded. There's nothing on there, but I could put together something like this really quickly, and you can at least see what it's supposed to look like. I could probably throw a parts list on there as well, and you can at least know what the parts are. but it's also a static drawing. I print this out, I give the PDF to my technical team. They're going to go ahead and try and build it, scrounge parts up, and get as much built as they can and put together as they can, while the machine shop is going to start making the new parts that are in this fixture. So if I'm in a Team Center environment, I can, as a technician, just find out the status of the assembly as it's being put together. I can talk to the engineer that's in charge of the assembly, find out what the assembly number is, and bring up a 3D view of that assembly. And that's in Team Center, and that's the optimal way of approaching this. But if you're not in Team Center, there's also other ways that you can share this data with your team. I can export a JT and then open it up in a free viewer, and there are several free viewers out there. Siemens has JT to go and Express Review, and just in Windows, the 3D viewer for JT is just a Windows. I think it started in Windows 8, and I have it here on my Windows 10 machine. I can open up a JT file and see what it is. I can see what the assembly structure is, and I have a JT to go shot over here that shows not only the JT but also PMI on the part itself. So let's go to a live demonstration here. So I have this is NX connected to Team Center. I have my assembly fixture here, and I'm still working on adding some parts into this assembly. Turn off one thing here, so that I'm working through the issues on this. I want to make sure that everything's going to fit, it's all going to work, and I may be making little tweaks and changes as I move forward. But there's enough information here with to send it out to my production team and have them start picking up parts. A lot of these parts I'm not going to change, like these rails on either side here, the center rail here. I'm not going to change these. We can dig them up, pull them out of stores, and start putting together a package to build this assembly. I know my base plate here. This is a new base plate, so the machine shop's going to end up getting this, and this particular part doesn't exist right now. So as I'm in here making changes to my assembly, I want my production team to be able to see what's going on. I'm going to switch over to Team Center view. See if it will refresh here. I told my tech what my part number is, so he did a search for it and found that it's 143907 here, and I see a preview. But if I go to my viewer tab, I don't see anything going on. I see it go to my JT preview tab, and I don't see anything going on as well. In Team Center, an assembly is going to be handled in your structure manager or product structure platform. So I'm going to switch over here to structure manager, where I've already loaded this up. But in fact, I should close this and reload it. Let's bring this open in structure manager, and I get what the structure looks like. I can see all the part numbers that are in the system, that are in this assembly, but I want to see the actual 3D part. Up here on my toolbar, there's a show hide data panel, and I'll be the first one to admit this is not necessarily intuitive. If you don't know which buttons to pick, you're going to be kind of lost. So it comes up with the data panel brings up a few tabs here, and the last tab I was on was graphics, so that's going to show me this, but it's a blank screen right now. Much like an assembly in a CAD system like NX, I can click on the top level up here, and it will put little checkboxes in each one of those components, and then I can see the 3D assembly here. So my tech, who also has access to Team Center, can bring this up in Structure Manager, see the assembly in 3D, and start interrogating, turning parts on and off, and figure out what's actually involved with this. So I've got an air cylinder in there. I've got a little clamp over here, and we can start digging up these parts. For the purchasing side, I can toggle on PMI in my toolbar. Again, I'm going to reiterate, this is not necessarily intuitive. And I can select this part, and I can toggle PMI on in the tree. So it's taking a little bit of real estate here. I want to see that PMI. I can see that this plate is 406.4 by 609.6. So I know if I can send it to a machine shop. Maybe they have a smaller machine that won't be able to handle this size of part, or I can use this to help filter it out. I also have a note down here. I can see that this is 1.5 mic 6 black anodized. I know as a purchaser, I know where to start sending this part and start sending it out for quote. You can also see on here that I got a little bit of GD&T. If I select that bottom GD&T, it's a flat to 0.05 millimeters. The entire bottom will highlight, and that's what the datum is pointing out. If I select my top, my parallel to 0.05, it's also going to highlight the top. This is where the PMI and the design intent kind of show through and make it a lot easier to figure out what the designer really wants to have happen with the part. So if I select my, let's select that counter bore there on the back side so we can see what's going on. When I select it, all those counterboard features will highlight in purple in this particular view. So I'll deselect that again and reselect it. So I know that even though I didn't put a count on there of how many there are, I can see visually all of those counterboard features and where they are applied to. Oops. The viewer in Teamcenter and the JT to go viewer that we'll be jumping into is the navigation is different than CAD. So since it's a different environment, your button clicks are going to be a little bit different how you navigate through the model. Okay, so here's my assembly view. I'm going to go ahead and close out my structure manager. Like I said, I'm still making new parts for this. I need to make a new cover plate. So I'm just going to quickly create a cover plate here. I don't really know what size it is, but I know I want the thickness to be about 2 millimeters thick. And I'll go ahead and save that. My cover plate's obviously a bit big. And I'll throw a dimension on here to at least move it over approximately to where I want it to be. And then when I save this, and go back into my Teamcenter environment, I'll bring this open again in my structure manager. Turn on my data panel. Turn on all the components. I'll see that the new plate that I just created is right there. So my technical team that's building this down on the shop floor can see the changes as they're happening in real time. So that is a luxury of having Teamcenter installed and in your organization. But if you don't, how would you convey this to non-CAD people? Well, I can export the assembly has a couple different things. I could just kick out a few JPEG images, which is kind of standard. I can do a few screenshots with some arrows pointing here and there, and throw a PowerPoint out there so I can get the job done quickly. But that kind of takes away from my design time, and I'm under the gun to get this fixture done as quickly as I can. So what I'm going to do is I'm going to export a JT. And I can export a JT, and this is one that in your organization you're going to need to experiment to figure out the type of JT that you want to push out. Whether it's a single file or if it follows the assembly structure as it does in NX, and I'll show a couple differences as I go into the live demo of JT to go. But this is something to kind of experiment with. And again, with JT, I can export. Oops, it's exporting. I accidentally hit OK on that one. I can export precise geometry inside the JT file. And what that means is if I kick a JT file out that has full PMI on it, and I send it to a shop that is also running NX, they can open it in the JT viewer to see what the PMI is. They can also open that in NX, and it will open up the precise representation of that part file that you sent them, and then they can use that for machining and other operations that they need to do. So I'm going to go to my JT to go session here. This looks very similar to what we see in Team Center. It is a different application. This is a standalone free application available from Siemens. And again, it has a lot of the same toolbars, but I can see structure a little bit differently. So I can toggle on PMI. I can select my base plate here and toggle the tree on, and then show PMI that's on the screen. And it turns on all the PMI that's available in that part. It also shows up with a few labels, and I can filter down what I don't want to see just by clicking on this little PMI filter configuration here. And maybe I don't want to see, oh, it's not supposed to be seeing those anyway. Apply that, get rid of those little labels that are in there. But I could also get rid of weld information if this is completely covered in welds, and all I want to really see is the dimensions. I can filter this down to see what I want to see. And this particular part, in the context of an assembly, tells me what's really going on. That this is a 1.5 inch mic 6 black anodize. I can still rotate this around, and when I look at my assembly over here, oops, highlighted everything there. When I highlight a part, it tells me what that part is over here, and then I can uncheck that to hide it, check it again, and it'll turn on. So this is a free application. Download and install. That's a pretty light install, and I can open up the JT files. And one of the things I mentioned is I can export a JT that follows the assembly structure. So here in my file system, I have my assembly structure fully shown here. It shows all the parts as individual JT files. I could also export it as a single JT, and if I get rid of this one here, this takes a second to open up. So I'll let that go for just a second. Oops. For some reason, it takes a little bit of time to open up in JT to go. I'll go ahead and open up I also created a 3D PDF of this. So if you haven't seen 3D PDFs, they're pretty cool. The advantage of a 3D PDF is that when you create one, pretty much everybody in the world on their computer has a PDF viewer. If it's not Adobe, it's something similar. And just by clicking on it, you can activate 3D view. I can open up the assembly structure. I can section cut through the part. I can do all kinds of querying on it. And this is a portable format, obviously, and I can email this to my design team or to an outside vendor if I want to have this fabricated outside. Maybe this isn't something that they would like to do. but it's easy to share that information that way. Oh, this is still cooking along. All right. I mentioned that you can get a free JT viewer from the Windows App Store, and it's a JT viewer or 3D viewer for JT. I've got a session open here. That's what this looks like. It's very similar. It's just a JT viewer. I have not been able to get it to show anything to do with PMI. So this is a very lightweight viewer, but it does tell you that it does show you the 3D part and pretty much the assembly structure over here. And if I uncheck some of these, let's see, they should start disappearing on here. I can't speak to how good or bad this program is. Oh yeah, so they are disappearing on the screen. But it is a free viewer available for Windows. And that's still cooking. Huh. I'm having a bit of a difficulty with this one right now. Okay. So there are multiple options out there for sharing your 3D data, especially if it has PMI on it. Ideally, within your organization, if you're running Team Center, everybody that has a Team Center account can get in and, depending on their permission levels and whatnot, they can get in and see the 3D parts. Again, back here to my Team Center session, if I just want to see a single part, I can see the single part here with no other parts of my assembly, and this is just in the regular viewer that's on my home tab, and I can turn the PMI on and see a single piece part file. But again, typically in Team Center in your home folder, you can't see assemblies, so you have to go into the structure manager. There are ways of having what's called monolithic JTs turned on, but that's a configuration on the backside. Again, Siemens has a couple of free products available, JT2Go being the most common one. Express Review allows you to take an assembly and essentially package it and send it out to your vendors. And there are many other JT viewers out there. Just a quick Google search, you'll find many of them. And did this ever? No. It doesn't want to respond at all. There we go. So with that, I'd like to open this up for questions if anyone has any questions. And I'll have to unmute everyone. There we go. So if there are any questions out there for visualizing some your JT data with PMI on it, go ahead and shoot them my way.